Once upon a time, there was a very kind little red hen. One fine morning, this little red hen found some grains of wheat, and instead of eating them, she decided to plant them. To sow these 5 grains of wheat, she called her 3 friends, the duck, the pig, and the cat, to come and help her. But the little red hen's 3 friends couldn't help her plant the 5 grains of wheat because they were all too busy. The pig grunted, "I would have liked to, but I haven't finished my meal," and he went away just as he had come. The cat purred, "Another time, with pleasure, but I need to get back to grooming myself," and he slipped away on his soft paws. The duck quacked, "Impossible for me. I have a date with Jane's duck," and he walked away waddling. "Well, then I will plant these seeds myself," said the little red hen, and that's what she did. Time passed, and the wheat grew. Soon the time came for the harvest, the time to cut down the tall stalks of wheat, and of course the little red hen called her 3 friends to help her. The duck quacked, "I don't have time. I have to go splash around," and he walked away waddling. The cat purred, "What bad luck! I would have loved to go to the mill with you, but I must finish drinking my milk first, or it might spoil," and he slipped away on his soft paws. The pig grunted, "I would have been a pleasure, but today is my mud bath day," and he went away just as he had come. So the little red hen went all alone to harvest the wheat stalks. Once the harvest was done, the little red hen had to carry the sack of wheat to the mill to grind it into flour. Naturally, she called on her 3 friends to come help her. The cat purred, "I would like to, but I think I saw a mouse pass by," and he slipped away on his soft paws. The pig grunted, "I would gladly help, but it's impossible now because it's snack time," and he went away just as he had come. The duck quacked, "Bad timing. I have a doctor's appointment for my liver," and he walked away waddling. So the little red hen went all alone to the mill with her sack of wheat, and came back all alone with her sack of flour. Once home, she took the flour, water, salt, and yeast to prepare her bread dough, and to help her knead the dough, she called her friends. The cat purred, "Oh, I'm really sorry, but I needed to go smooth out my whiskers," and he slipped away on his soft paws. The pig grunted, "I would have loved to, but I need to curl my corkscrew tail," and he went away just as he had come. The duck quacked, "Shoot, I don't have time. I needed to check if my neck is properly green," and he walked away waddling. So the little red hen kneaded the dough all by herself, let it rest, rise, and then baked the bread on her oven all by herself. When the bread was ready, she called her friends. "Who wants to help me to eat this delicious bread?" Me, grunted the pig. Me, quacked the duck. Me, purred the cat. But the little red hen, who had planted the wheat all by herself, who had harvested it all by herself, who had carried the wheat to the mill all by herself, who had prepared the bread dough all by herself? Well, no, since I've done everything by myself until now, I'll continue. And she ate her bread, which was delicious. Once upon a time, there were 3 bears who lived in a pretty house deep in the woods. There was Papa Bear, Mama Bear, and Baby Bear. Everyone had a bowl, a large bowl for Papa Bear, a medium bowl for Mama Bear, and a small bowl for Baby Bear. Everyone also had a chair to sit on, a large chair for Papa Bear, a medium chair for Mama Bear, and a little chair for Baby Bear. In the room there were 3 beds for sleeping, a large bed for Papa Bear, a medium bed for Mama Bear, and a small bed for Baby Bear. That morning, Mama Bear prepared some good porridge which she poured into the 3 bowls. "The porridge is too hot," she said. "If we eat it now, it will burn our tongues." "Let's go for a walk while we wait for it to cool," suggested Papa Bear. Yes, let's go for a walk," Baby Bear repeated. "We'll pick berries." They took a basket and headed into the woods. While they were picking berries, a little girl came out onto the path and saw the house of the 3 bears. She was called Goldilocks because of her curly blonde hair. First, she looked through the window, then through the keyhole, and finally she pushed the door and shouted, "Hey, is anyone there?" When no one answered, she entered. She was also very hungry when she saw the 3 bowls filled with good porridge on the table. She really wanted to taste it. She tasted Papa Bear's porridge. "Wow, it's so hot," she said, putting the spoon back in the bowl. She then tasted Mama Bear's porridge. "Oh, it's too cold," she said, dropping the spoon on the floor. She finally tasted Baby Bear's porridge and found it so good that she ate it all and even licked the bottom of the bowl. Then she wanted to rest. She saw the 3 chairs and she climbed onto Papa Bear's big chairs, but it was really too hard. She got off the chair, tipping it over. She tried Mama Bear's medium chair, but there were too many cushions and she found it too soft. She finally sat down on Baby Bear's little chair and found it exactly to her liking, neither too hard nor too soft. She had fun jumping on it, so much so that she ended up breaking the seat and falling to the ground. "I'm tired," she said. "I could use some sleep." She went up to the bedroom when she saw 3 beds. She climbed onto Papa Bear's big bed, grabbing onto the blankets and dropping them to the floor, but it was too hard. So she tried Mama Bear's medium bed, but no matter how much she threw the pillows on the floor, it was far too soft. She settled into Baby Bear's little bed, which she found just right. She buried herself under the covers and fell asleep. After some time, thinking that the porridge had cooled enough, the 3 bears returned home, but when they put the basket full of berries on the table, they noticed that someone had come. "Someone tasted my porridge," Papa Bear said in his big gruff voice when he saw the spoon on his bowl. "Someone tasted my porridge," said Mama Bear in her average voice when she saw her spoon on the floor. "Someone tasted my porridge and ate it all," whined Baby Bear in his tiny voice. They started to look around and thought that the 3 chairs had been moved. "Someone sat on my chair?" Papa Bear growled in his big gruff voice as he put his chair back in place. "Someone sat in my chair," said Mama Bear in her average voice, putting the cushions back in place. "And you know what Goldilocks did with Baby Bear's chair? Someone sat on my chair and broke it," whined Baby Bear in his tiny voice. They then went up to their room. "Someone slept on my bed," Papa Bear growled in his loud voice when he saw the blankets on the floor. "Someone slept in my bed," said Mama Bear in her average voice when she saw her pillows on the floor. "Someone slept in my bed, and she's still sleeping there," exclaimed Baby Bear in surprise. Goldilocks was so sound asleep that when Papa Bear growled in his big, harsh voice, she thought she was dreaming that the wind was blowing hard and thunder was roaring. But when Mama Bear spoke in her middle voice, Goldilocks thought she heard the rain tapping on the window. But Baby Bear's shrill voice pierced Goldilocks' ears so loudly that she woke up with a start. Seeing the three bears leaning over her, she screamed, jumped out of bed, and ran away at full speed, and the three bears never saw her again. Papa Bear repaired Baby Bear's chairs, Mama Bear put the house in order, and since then they always closed the door when they go for a walk in the forest. A good had 7 little kids whom she loved dearly and carefully protected from the wolf. One day, as she had to go out to find food, she gathered her kids and said, "My dear children, I must go out to get something to eat. Be very careful of the wolf and don't let him in. Be extra cautious because he often pretends to be kind, but you can recognize him by his rough voice and black paws. Don't open the door for him under any circumstances, for he would gobble you up in no time." After saying this, she left, but soon enough the wolf came to the door and, disguising his voice, said, "Little ones, open up, it's your mother. I brought you lovely things from the market." But the 7 kids replied, "You're not our mother. She has a sweet, gentle voice, but yours is rough. You're the wolf, and we won't open the door." The wolf then went to a store and brought a big piece of chalk to soften his voice. He returned to the goat's house and said with a gentle voice, "Little ones, open up. It's your mother. I've brought you gifts." But he placed his paw on the window ledge and the little goat saw it. "You're not our mother. She doesn't have black paws like you. You're the wolf, and we won't open the door." Furious, the wolf went to the baker and said, "Cover my paw with fresh dough." Then he went to the miller and said, "Coat my paw with your white flour." The miller hesitated, but the wolf threatened him, "If you don't do it, I'll eat you." So the miller obeyed. The wolf returned to the goat's house and said, "Little ones, open up, it's your mother. I've brought you some gift." The kids asked to see the paw, and since it was white, they believed it was the mother and opened the door. The wolf came in. When they realized who it was, they quickly hid, one under the table, another in the bed, a third in the oven, the fourth in the kitchen, the fifth in the wardrobe, the sixth under a big bowl, and the 7th inside the clock. But the wolf found them all and swallowed them, except for the youngest, who had hidden in the clock. Satisfied, the wolf left, and shortly after, the mother goat came back home. What a shock when she saw that the wolf had eaten her little ones! She thought they were all dead, and began to cry when suddenly the youngest came out of the cloak and explained what had happened. Meanwhile, the wolf, feeling full, had gone to a field to take a nap in the sun. The goat saw him and thought she might still be able to save her kids, so she said to the youngest, "Go get a needle, thread, and scissors, and follow me." They approached the sleeping wolf, and the mother goat said, "Here's the big bad wolf sound asleep." She took the scissors, cut open the wolf's belly, and miraculously the 6 little goats were still there, alive, as the wolf had swallowed them whole. The mother goat hugged her children with tears in her eyes, then asked them to go find some big stones. They filled the wolf's belly with the stones and sewed him back up. Then they hid behind a hedge. When the wolf woke up, he felt very heavy and said, "Oh, my stomach feels so full." He thought some water would help, so he headed to a well to drink. But the weight of the stones pulled him forward, and he fell into the well. When the goat and her 7 kids saw this, they jumped for joy and danced around the well. Once upon a time, a young boy named Jack who lived with his mother. They had no money and nothing left to eat. "We have no choice but to sell our old cow," said Jack's mother. "Take her to market and sell her for a good price." So Jack set off with the cow. Before long, he met an old man who asked, "Are you selling that fine cow?" "Yes," Jack replied. "Well, I'll give you these magic beans for her," said the man. "They don't look much, but if you plant them, you will soon be rich." Jack liked the sound of that, and he gave the cow to the man. When Jack showed his mother the beans, she was very angry. "Silly boy, go to your room," she cried, throwing the beans out of the window. The next morning, when Jack woke up, his room was strangely dark. He looked out of his window and saw a plant so tall that he couldn't see the top of it. "It must be a magic beanstalk," he cried. Jack started to climb. When he reached the top, he saw a giant house. Jack's tummy was rumbling with hunger, so he knocked on the enormous door, and a giant woman answered. "Please, may I have some breakfast?" asked Jack. "You'll be my breakfast if my husband sees you," said the woman. But Jack begged and pleaded, and at last the giant's wife let him in. She gave him some bread and milk and hid him in a cupboard. Soon Jack heard loud footsteps and felt the cupboard shake. "Fee-fi-fo-foom, I smell the blood of an Englishman," roared the giant. "Don't be silly," the giant's wife said. "You smell the sausages I've cooked for your breakfast." When the giant had finished eating, he counted the hundreds of huge gold coins in his treasure chest. But soon the giant fell asleep. As quick as a flash, Jack came out of the cupboard and took all the money. He ran out of the house and climbed down the beanstalk and gave the money to his mother. His mother was so happy to see the gold. "Clever boy, we'll never be poor again," she laughed. But soon Jack and his mother had spent all the money, so the boy climbed the beanstalk again. Jack saw the giant woman again. "Look out," she said. "My husband is angry because his money has been stolen." After eating his breakfast, Jack hid in the cupboard just as the giant arrived home for lunch. "Fee-fi-fo-foom, watch out everyone, here I come," roared the giant. When he had finished eating, his wife brought him his pet hen. "Lay," he bellowed, and the hen laid a golden egg. It laid 10 eggs before the giant started to snore. Jack couldn't believe his luck, so he came out of the cupboard and took the hen. Then he climbed down the beanstalk. His mother beamed when she saw the hen lay a golden egg. "We will never be hungry again," she said. But even though Jack and his mother were rich, the boy decided to climb the beanstalk one more time. Jack saw the giant woman again. "Look out," she said. "My husband is angry because his hen and his money were stolen." "Fee-fi-fo-foom, watch out, everyone! Here I come!" roared the giant. "You must hide in the cupboard again," said the woman. When the giant came home, his wife brought him his magic harp. "Play," he roared. And the harp played such sweet music, the giant soon fell asleep. Jack saw his chance and grabbed the harp. As he ran, the harp cried out, "Master, help!" The giant woke up and began to chase Jack down the beanstalk. "Mother, bring me the eggs!" Jack yelled as he reached the ground. He chopped at the beanstalk with all his might. Crack! The giant crashed to the ground and died. And that was the end of the giant. When his mother heard the harp play, she laughed and hugged Jack tightly. "My clever boy," she said. And the two of them were not poor, and they lived happily ever after. Once upon a time, there was a king and a queen who dreamed every day of having a child. "Oh, if only we had a baby," they would say. But alas, time passed, and still no baby in sight. Until one day, while the queen was taking a bath, a frog suddenly jumped out of the water and said with a big smile, "Don't worry anymore. Before the year is over, you will have a little girl." And just like magic, the frog's predictions came through. The queen gave birth to a beautiful baby girl, so beautiful that the king was overjoyed. To celebrate this happy event, he decided to throw a huge party. He invited all their friends, family, and even the fairies of the kingdom to give the blessings to the princess. But there was a small problem. There were 13 fairies in the kingdom, and the king only had 12 golden plates, so one of the fairies wasn't invited. The party was splendid. The fairies, one by one, gave the princess incredible gifts. One gave her beauty, another kindness, a third gave her grace, and so on. But suddenly, the 13th fairy, the one who hadn't been invited, stormed into the hall. She was furious. Without saying a word to anyone, she cast a terrible curse. "When the princess turns 15, she will prick her finger on the spindle and fall dead." Everyone was frozen with fear. Luckily, the 12th fairy, who hadn't yet given her blessing, stepped forward. She couldn't undo the curse, but she could soften it. "The princess won't die," she said. "She will only fall into a deep sleep, but for 100 years. Terrified that this curse might come through, the king ordered that every spindle in the kingdom be burned. Despite this, the princess grew up, becoming more beautiful, kinder, and more loved by all with each passing day. The day of her 15th birthday finally came. The king and queen were away, leaving their daughter alone in the castle. Curious and full of energy, the princess explored every corner of the castle. She climbed up to an old tower she had never visited before. At the top, she found a small door with a rustic key. She turned the key and opened the door, discovering an old woman sitting inside, spinning wool. "Hello, grandmother," said the princess. "What are you doing?" "I am spinning, my dear," replied the old woman with a smile. "Oh, that looks fun. Can I try?" asked the princess. Without hesitation, she took the spindle in her hands and pricked her finger. In an instant, she fell into a deep sleep, and this sleep spread throughout the entire castle. The king, queen, servants, and even the animals all fell asleep. Even the fire in the earth went out, and outside a giant forest of thorns began to grow round the castle, hiding it completely. Years passed, and soon no one remembered the castle's existence. But a legend remained, the story of Sleeping Beauty, a princess who had been asleep for 100 years. Many brave princes tried to pass through the thorny forest to wake her, but none succeeded. Until one day, a young prince, curious and brave, arrived in the kingdom. After hearing the tale of Sleeping Beauty, he decided to try his luck. As he approached the castle, the thorns magically turned into flowers and parted, allowing him to pass. The prince entered the silent castle, where everyone was still fast asleep. He climbed up to the tower, opened the door to the small room, and there he saw Sleeping Beauty, so beautiful that he couldn't look away. Without thinking, he leaned down and gave her a gentle kiss. At that very moment, the princess opened her eyes and smiled. The entire castle woke up, the king, the queen, the horses, the dogs, even the fire in the fireplace lit up again. The prince and Sleeping Beauty were married in great joy, and they lived happily ever after. And, of course, no one ever pricked their finger on a spindle again. Once upon a time, there was a woodcutter and his wife who lived with their 7 children. The youngest of them, Little Thumb, was so small that everyone called him that. The family was very poor and hardly had anything left to eat. With heavy hearts, the parents decided to take their children into the forest and leave them there, hoping they might have a better chance of survival. Little Thumb, who had sharp ears, overheard their plan. He didn't say anything to his brothers, but before leaving, he slipped some small white papers into his pocket. The next day, the parents took the children deep into the forest. When the children were busy playing, the parents quietly slipped away. When the children realized they were alone, they were scared and started to cry. But Little Thumb, calm and clever, said, "Don't worry, follow me. I left papers along the path so we can find our way home." Thanks to his cleverness, they returned home without any trouble. However, despite their return, the situation hadn't changed. The family still had no food. Desperate, the parents decided to try losing the children in the forest again. This time, Little Thumb couldn't gather papers as the door was locked. So he used the crumbs from his piece of bread to mark the way. Unfortunately, when they tried to follow the crumbs to find their way back, they discovered that the birds had eaten them all. The children were lost in the heart of the forest. Tired and hungry, they walked until they saw a light in the distance. It was the house of an ogre. They knocked on the door, and a woman opened it. "Please, can we have something to eat and stay the night?" the children asked. The woman, who had a kind heart, replied, "Come in quickly, but hide well. My husband is an ogre who eats children." Trembling, the boys hid under the bed. When the ogre came home, he sniffed the air and roared, "I smell fresh flesh." His wife tried to calm him down by saying, "It's just the chicken I cooked." But the ogre wasn't fooled and found the children hiding under the bed. "I'll eat them tomorrow morning," he growled, rubbing his belly. That night, the children were put to bed in the same room as the ogre's 7 daughters, who each wore a beautiful crown. Little Thumb, once again thinking quickly, was afraid that the ogre might come in the night to eat them. So he caught up and switched the crowns from the ogre's daughters with his brother's nightcaps. When the ogre came into the room, thinking he was touching his daughter's head, he accidentally killed his own children instead because of the swap Little Thumb had made. At dawn, Little Thumb woke his brother, and they fled through the forest. When the ogre discovered his mistake, he was furious and put on his 7-legged boots to chase after them. These magical boots allowed him to take huge steps and cover great distances in no time. The children hid under a rock, and the ogre, exhausted from running, lay down near a tree and fell asleep. Taking advantage of this moment, Little Thumb approached quietly, took the ogre's magical boots, and put them on. They fit perfectly as they were enchanted. With these boots, Little Thumb returned to the ogre's house and said to his wife, "Robbers have captured your husband and are demanding all the gold from your house in exchange for his freedom." Panicked, the woman gave him all the money she had. When Little Thumb and his brothers returned home, they found the parents who were overjoyed to see them. Thanks to the gold he had brought back, the family never went hungry again. The parents were filled with joy and grateful for their son. As for the ogre, when he woke up, he realized he had made a terrible mistake. Filled with remorse, he decided never to eat children again. And so Little Thumb saved his family, and they lived happily ever after. Once upon a time, there were 3 little pigs who lived with the mother in a small house. One day, the mother called her 3 sons and told them that she could no longer take care of them because she was too poor. "I want to live here and build your own houses," she said. "But make sure they are strong so that the big bad wolf won't be able to get in and eat you." The mother kissed her 3 little pigs goodbye with tears in her eyes, and they set off to build their houses. The first little pig met a man carrying a bundle of straw. "May I have some straw to build my house?" asked the little pig. And the man gave him some straw. The second little pig met a man carrying a load of wood. "May I have some wood to build my house?" asked the little pig. And the man gave him some wood. The third little pig met a man with a load of bricks. "Please, sir," asked the third little pig, "may I have some bricks to build my house?" The man gave him enough bricks to build a large, sturdy house with a chimney near which one could sit. The 3 little pigs were happily heading home when the wolf saw them. How tender they must be! Which one should I eat first? I'd start with the little pig in the straw house. He knocked on the door. Little pig, let me come in." "No, no, not by the hair on my tiny chin-chin," Then I'll huff and I'll puff and I'll blow your house down." The wolf puffed out his cheeks, huffed and puffed with all his might, and the straw house blew away. "Help!" cried the first little pig as he ran to his brother's wooden house. No sooner had he shut the door than the wolf knocked. Little pigs, let me come in." "No, no, not by the hair on our tiny chin-chins," replied the two brothers. "Then I'll huff and I'll puff and I'll blow your house down." The wolf puffed out his cheeks, huffed and puffed with all his might, and the wooden house blew away. "Help!" cried the two little pigs. They ran as fast as they could to their brother's brick house. "You'll be safe here," he told them. Soon the wolf's voice rang out. Little pigs, let me come in." "No, no, not by the hair of our tiny chin-chins." "Then just wait," howled the wolf. "I'll huff and I'll puff and I'll blow your house down." He took his deepest breath and blew with all his might. But this time he couldn't bring the house down. He banged his head against the walls and hurt himself. Then he ran off into the forest, howling in pain. This made the wolf furious. He was so angry that he turned completely blue. "I must catch those pigs," he thought to himself. A few days later, the little pigs saw the wolf arriving with a tall ladder. "I should have thought of this earlier," he said, as he placed it against the wall of the house to reach the chimney. Meanwhile, the third little pig, who was very clever, lit a pig fire in the fireplace and put a pot of water on it. When the wolf fell right into it, he let out a scream that could be heard for miles around and fled back up the chimney the way it came. He was never heard from again. Once upon a time, there was a little girl who always wore a little Red Riding Hood. As it suited her so well, she eventually came to be known as Little Red Riding Hood. One day, her grandmother fell ill. Little Red Riding Hood's mother baked a cake and called her daughter. "Go check on your grandmother and bring her this cake and this little pot of butter." The little girl took her basket and set off towards the forest. There, of course, she met the wolf. He wanted to eat her right away, but since some woodcutters were working nearby, he decided to pretend to be friendly. "So, Little Red Riding Hood, where are you going in such a hurry?" he asked. "I'm going to see my grandmother, who is sick," replied the little girl. "And where does she live, this grandmother of yours?" asked the wolf again. "On the other side of the mill, you can see over there," explained the little girl. "I see two paths that lead to her place." "Let's play a game," said the wolf. "I'll take this path and you take that one. We'll see who gets to grandmother's house first." Little Red Riding Hood didn't have time to respond before the wolf had already taken off. Along the way, she played with butterflies, gathered hazelnuts, and made a bouquet of flowers. As for the wolf, who had chosen the shortest path, he ran as fast as he could to grandmother's house. Once he arrived, he knocked on the door. "Who is it?" asked grandmother. "It's me, your Little Red Riding Hood," said the wolf, changing his voice. "I've brought you a cake and a little pot of butter. Pull the pop in and the light will go up," replied grandmother. The wolf pulled the bobbin, and the door opened. He immediately spotted Grandmother lying on her bed and threw himself upon her, swallowing her whole. A few moments later, the wolf realized he was still very hungry. A grandmother doesn't really fill the stomach of a hungry wolf. Then he had an idea. Little Red Riding Hood would be arriving soon, and he would be there to greet her. He put on Grandmother's clothes and waited. Soon there was a knock at the door. "Who is it?" asked the wolf in a trembling voice. "It's me, your little Red Riding Hood. Pull the bobbin and the latch will go up," he replied. As Little Red Riding Hood entered, the wolf hid under the covers. "Put down your basket and come join me," he said. When she lay down on the bed, the little girl was quite surprised. "But, Grandmother, what big arms you have! All the better to hug you with, my dear." "But, Grandmother, what big legs you have! All the better to run with, my dear." "But, Grandmother, what big ears you have! All the better to hear you with, my dear." "But, Grandmother, what big eyes you have! All the better to see you with, my dear." "But, Grandmother, what big teeth you have! All the better to eat you with, my dear." At these words, the wolf sprang upon Little Red Riding Hood, devoured her, and, satisfied, fell asleep. A hunter passing by heard loud snores. "What's going on with Grandmother to be snoring like that?" he wondered. Intrigued, he entered the house. When he saw the wolf lying there, the hunter understood everything. Thinking there might still be something to do, he took large scissors and cut open the wolf's belly. Grandmother and the little girl emerged safe and sound. Little Red Riding Hood, still trembling with fear, then promised never to speak to a wolf again, even if he pretended to be friendly. Once upon a time, there was a prince who longed to marry a princess, but not just any princess. He desired a true princess. So he traveled the world in search of the one who could become his bride. He met many princesses, but each time a doubt lingered. Something about them always seemed suspicious, and he could never be certain that he had found a true princess. After many efforts and countless encounters, the prince returned home, alone and with a heavy heart. He was desperate, for he wishes more than anything to discover the true princess of his dreams. One stormy night, as the rain pounded against the windows and lightning lit up the sky, someone knocked at the castle door. The old king hurried to open it, and there, in front of him, stood a young woman. But, oh my, what a sight she was! Rain dripped from her hair, her clothes were soaked and dirty, and her shoes were filled with water. Yet, despite her miserable appearance, she claimed to be a true princess. "We shall soon find out," thought the old queen mischievously. She let the young woman in without a word, and discreetly made her way to the bedroom. There she removed all the bedding from the bed, leaving only a single pea at the bottom of the mattress. Then she piled 20 mattresses on top of the pea, and another 20 divans on top of the mattresses. This was the bed prepared for the princess. The next morning, the queen eagerly asked the young woman how she had slept. "Alas, it was terrible," the princess replied. "I barely closed my eyes all night. God knows what was in that bed, but I was lying on something so hard that I have bruises all over. It was dreadful." Hearing these words, everyone knew that she was a true princess, for only skin as delicate as hers could feel a pea through 20 mattresses and 20 TVs. The prince, convinced that he had finally found a real princess, married her without delay. As for the pea, it was carefully preserved in the Royal Museum, where it remains on display, unless someone has stolen it. And so, the story I have just told you is as true as the princess herself. Once upon a time, there lived a miller who had 3 sons. When the man died, he left the mill to his oldest son. The middle son received his donkey, while the youngest son was given his only other possession, a cat. The young man felt sad. Seeing the young man sad, the cat went over and rubbed his head against the young man's leg and spoke. The young man was astonished. "Yes, I can talk," said the cat. "And if you would like to buy me a handsome pair of boots and a large leather bag, I will make you a rich and happy man." Although the young man was poor, and the few coins he had in his pocket was all he possessed, he was so astonished that his cat could talk, he went out and bought the boots and bag. Dressed in his brand new boots, the cat put bait in the bottom of his leather bag, threw it over his shoulder, and set out over the fields. Using his cunning, the cat caught a plump rabbit. Now you would have thought that the cat would have gone back to the young man and given him the rabbit to eat as he was hungry. But no, the cat had bigger plans. With the boldness of a lion, this clever cat took his plump rabbit straight to the king and presented it as a gift from his master, the Marquis de Carabas. As he bowed low to the king, he noticed the king's daughter sitting beside him. She was beautiful, and when she smiled, the whole room brightened. He bowed to the princess, who smiled back. Every day, the cat came to the king's palace, presenting gifts from his master, the Marquis de Carabas. Every day, he bowed to the princess, and the princess smiled back. The cat soon became a favorite at the king's palace. One day, he overheard the king planning a carriage ride along the river bank with his daughter. He raced home and told his master, "Do what I say, and fortune will smile kindly on us. Opportunity is knocking on our door." The cat took the young man down to the river. "Take off your clothes and get in the water." As soon as the young man was in the water, the cat took his turn and tattered the clothes and hid them under a big stone. Then waited for the king. As the king's carriage approached, the cat raced out, waving his hand in the air and shouting to the coachman, "Help! Help! My master, the Marquis de Carabas, is drowning!" When the king heard the name, the Marquis de Carabas, he ordered the coach to stop and the coachman to rescue the young man from the river. The coachman pulled the astonished young man out of the river. The young man tried to cover his nakedness. "Where are his clothes?" asked the king. "Sir, he was set upon and robbed by the wicked man who took all his possessions." "Then we must fetch suitable replacements from the palace." Dressed in the finest of clothes tailored by the king's personal tailor, the young man was presented to the king and his daughter. He was taken by the daughter's beauty. She, noting his fine clothes and handsome looks, fell immediately in love with him. The young man was invited to join the king and his daughter in the royal carriage. As the carriage continued on its way, Puss in Boots raced ahead. He came across some peasants working in the field. Drawing his sword, Puss in Boots challenged them. When the king asked to whom these fields belong, declare the Marquis de Carabas, or it will be the worse for you. The frightened workers agreed. The cat then came upon the village. He told the villagers, when the king asked whose lands are these, declare the Marquis de Carabas, or it will be the worse for you. These fields, sir, and all the surrounding lands belong to the Marquis de Carabas. I am impressed, my lord, said the king. The king's daughter smiled and took the young man's arm. The young man was even more astonished by the cleverness and audacity of his cat. Puss in Boots came at last to a castle and knocked boldly on the door. The enormous wooden door cracked open, and a large ogre presented himself. "What do you want?" The cat bowed low. "I have heard you are fierce and cruel, and that people are afraid of you." "What of it?" grunted the ogre. "I have also heard you have powers to change yourself." Suddenly, a ferocious lion appeared when the ogre had stood. Puss quickly scrambled and scratched his way up under the curtain, well out of reach of the lion's sharp teeth. From his safe perch high upon the curtain, the cat's confidence returned. "That's easy," he chided, "to change yourself into something so big. But you couldn't change yourself into, say, something as small as a mouse, could you?" With a sneer, the ogre transformed himself into a mouse. It was exactly what the cat was waiting for. It jumped up and devoured the mouse. Thus disappeared the ogre. Just then, Puss heard the sound of the king's carriage pulling into the courtyard. He hurried out to greet the king and his daughter. "Welcome to the castle of my master, the Marquis de Carabas, your majesties." "So, this is your home?" the king said to the young man. The young man had stopped being astonished by anything his clever cat caught up to. His time was now occupied in the company of the beautiful princess. The ogre's servants were pleased with their new master and prepared the most wonderful banquet. After the feast, an engagement and a marriage all in the one afternoon. The young man, the Marquis de Carabas, his wife, the princess, and Puss in Boots all lived in the ogre's castle happily ever after. One day, a mother duck felt her eggs begin to shake. One by one, the eggs cracked open. 8 yellow ducklings poked out their head. "Peep, peep," they said. "Quack, quack," said Mother Duck. But one egg did not crack, one very big egg. Mother Duck sat on the big egg for a few more days. Finally, it cracked open. Out popped a big bird. "Oh," said Mother Duck, "you do not look like my other ducklings, but I am your mother, and I love you." The little yellow ducklings made fun of the new bird. "You do not look like us," they said. "You are big and gray. You are an ugly duckling." This made the new bird very sad. "You do not look like my other ducklings," said Mother Duck, "but I am your mother, and I love you." The ugly duckling looked for someone to play with. He went to the farm pond. "Will you swim with me?" he asked. "No," said the ducklings. "You are too ugly." "No," said the frogs and turtles. "You are an ugly duckling." Then he tried the farmyard. "Will you play with me?" he asked. "No, no," said the horses. "You are too ugly." "No," said the pigs, and they laughed at him. The sad, ugly duckling went back to the farm pond. "No one will play with me," he said to Mother Duck. "I am too ugly." "You do not look like the other ducklings," said Mother Duck, "but I am your mother, and I love you." But the ugly duckling was not happy, so he flew away. Soon The ugly duckling found a small pond. No one could say he was ugly. No one could make fun of him. Time passed, and the ugly duckling grew up. His wings were wider. His neck was longer. His feathers had turned white. He had changed, but he did not know it. Then, one day, two big white birds flew over the pond. "What beautiful birds!" thought the ugly duckling. "I hope they'll stop to visit. I am lonely." The birds flew lower and landed on the pond with a splash. "Hello," said the ugly duckling. "Who are you?" "We are swans," said the big white birds. "Just like you." "I am not a swan," said the ugly duckling. "I am an ugly duckling." The swans laughed. "Look down at the water," they said. "What do you see?" The ugly duckling looked down at the water. "You're right," he cried. "I am a beautiful swan." The ugly duckling was very happy to be a beautiful swan. He flew off at once to visit the farm. "Hello," he said. "Do you remember me?" "No," said the ducks. "No," said the frogs and turtles. "We've never seen you before," sniffed the horses and pigs. "I am the ugly duckling," cried the swan. All the animals said, "You are too beautiful to be the ugly duckling." "I grow up to be a beautiful swan," he said. All the animals were happy to be with such a beautiful bird. Then the swan saw Mother Duck. "Hello, I am your ugly duckling," he said. Mother Duck did not care if he was a duckling or a swan. She said, "You do not look like my other ducklings, but I am your mother, and I love you." Once upon a time, there was a beautiful girl named Cinderella. She used to live with her stepmother, stepsisters, and her father. Her father used to stay out of the town on business, and her own mother died long ago. The behavior of the stepmother and stepsisters towards Cinderella was very mean and self-centered, and they used to make her do all the household chores, like cleaning the house, cooking, ironing clothes. Stepmother used to boss her and give her orders all the time. "Why are you sitting, Cinderella? Who will make the preparations for the dinner? You need to clean my room also after that." Even stepsister used to make her do the work too, and they used to create unnecessary complaints about Cinderella to the mother, so that she would ask her to do extra work. "She needs to arrange our room, Speedy, Mamma, and she has not put laces on my new dress also," said one of the stepsisters. However, Cinderella, being a kind-hearted girl, never replied back and kept doing all the work in silence. Day passed and turned into years, but her misery never ended. One day, everyone in the town got an invitation from the palace for the royal ball. The king and queen wanted their son to choose his wife and future queen. Therefore, everyone was invited. The invitation read like, "The king and queen request the honor of your presence at the royal ball. The king wants to choose the bride for the prince and future king. Be there with your family to have a gala time." The letter reached Cinderella's house too. Cinderella's stepmother instantly ordered Cinderella to design beautiful ball gowns for her and her daughters. Cinderella thought in her mind, "I will make beautiful gowns for everyone. I hope Mamma will take me along too." But on the final day, the stepmother and stepsisters gave her more household work to complete, and at last left her home, citing her competence in finishing the work on time as the reason. "We are getting late, Cinderella. You cannot do one work on time. Right now you cannot come with us, as there is so much left to do," said the stepmother. Her stepsisters also secretly tore her dress to add to her agony. Left alone in the house, sad, Cinderella cried and said, seeing the sky, "Dreams never come true, never." At the same time, a fairy appeared in front of her and said, "Don't be afraid, my child. I am your fairy godmother. I know you want to join others at the royal ball, and I can make it happen, my dear." She waved her magic wand and converted Cinderella's torn dress into a beautiful gown. She transformed a nervy pumpkin into a colossal coach and turned 6 rats into 4 horses to pull the coach and 2 driving coachmen. She also gave her a beautiful pair of glass slippers matching her dress. Now, Cinderella was all set to join the others. Cinderella was so thankful and said, "Thank you, fairy godmother. Now I can join my sisters and enjoy the ball." But before she left, the fairy godmother gave her one warning. "My dear, you need to be back before midnight, because my magic won't work after that. You will be back in your original look." Cinderella nodded yes and left for the ball to join the others. At the party, everyone was stunned to see Cinderella, as she was the most beautiful girl at the ball. The prince fell in love the moment he laid eyes on her. He instantly came and asked her to dance with him. He said, "I have not seen anyone more beautiful than you. Will you care for a dance with me?" It was like a dream come true for Cinderella. She said yes instantly. All the girls, including her stepsisters, were jealous of her. The prince and Cinderella conversed and danced the entire night until she realized the clock was reaching midnight. She rushed back home, leaving the prince in dismay. The prince ran after her, but in vain. As she was rushing back, one of her glass slippers dropped on the stairs of the palace. The next day, the prince decided to search the entire kingdom for the girl who would fit the glass slippers, as he wanted to marry that girl. "Search every house and found me the girl whose foot will fit inside the slipper, as she would be my bride for life," said the prince. The soldiers searched all the houses one by one, but in vain. At last they knocked on Cinderella's house. They asked the stepsisters and Cinderella to wear the shoe one by one. The evil stepsisters tried hard to squeeze their feet inside the slipper, but were useless. Then it was Cinderella's chance to try the shoe, which was the perfect fit. The prince was cold and immediately recognized Cinderella from the ball night. The prince said, "I was looking for you everywhere. Why did you leave me like this? Now I will not let you go. Will you marry me?" Ecstatic Cinderella said yes instantly. Later, they got married in a grand ceremony and lived happily ever after.